I went to 2 different art schools, and the second one I dropped out of, and I had a really wonderful teacher who, when I told him, said, "Oh, don't worry, all the best artists drop out of art school."
Hello, print friends, and welcome. This is a bilingual podcast, so if you subscribe to us, you'll be getting episodes in English with me, as well as in Spanish with Reynaldo Gil Zambrano. Together, we speak with people around the globe about their practice and passions in the field of print media and multiples. This episode is brought to you by Legion Paper. Legion Paper is a fine art paper company that represents the best papers in the world. They either stock it, source it, or make it. With brands like Stonehenge, Somerset, Coventry, Reeves, Arches, and more, Legion is the best paper resource for every artist and printmaker's needs. Learn more about the variety of papers Legion stocks at www.legionpaper.com. This week, we're coming to you from my living room sofa in Chiang Mai, Thailand. My guest this week is the brilliant Onnie O'Leary, a tattooer and visual artist from Sydney, Australia, who has just wrapped up a 3-week guest residency at Hello Print Friend Studios. We dive into what it's been like living and working together under one roof, how tattooing and printmaking share a surprising number of parallels, and the magic that happens when creative collaboration is allowed to bloom. We also talk about ghosts, guts, glowing girls, and the deep human connection that is found in making art side by side. Let's get into it. Hi, Onnie. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. I feel like this is a very special episode of Hello Print Friend. You have to bring your friends, bring your family around, because we are sitting here in my home on my sofa, and you have been staying with Tim and I for almost 3 weeks and working in the studio. And I'm just really excited to have a chance to talk to you about that experience, talk to you about your background, and just have a yap, which you and I have always been very good at.
It's like I always feel like kind of weirdly self-conscious once the microphones are on or anything. But yeah, we've had so many good conversations like the last 3 weeks. And I'm really impressed because I remember when I first spoke to you about coming here and I was like, "Oh, you're happy to put me up? Is 3 weeks going to be okay to have me in the house?" But it's been so nice.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're looking forward to having some actual alone time. And I know you're planning a big pool day tomorrow after I go back to the airport. But it has been so lovely to be here with you. And I think it's one of the things, Tim got really excited when I called it a guest spot the other day instead of a residency, because a guest spot is what we would call it in tattooing, right? When you're traveling to go and work at another shop and stay there. But in the fine art world, it's an artist residency.
Yes,
so
you have been in residence with us, which is very nice.
I really have been.
in a very literal way.
But I think the best thing about that is when I getting to stay with you guys has meant that we've had so many more conversations than we would have if we'd just been in the studio. And as much as the accommodation that you guys have for the artists is so nice, yeah, it's been really, really special.
For people who don't already know you and love you, like Tim and I, would you introduce yourself? And I always ask my guests to answer 3 questions, which I define as the who you are, where you are, what you do questions.
So my name's Onnie O'Leary. I'm a tattooer and general dog's body artist from Sydney, Australia. Currently, that's where I am at the moment. I've lived a few places, and I was born in Tasmania, which is the little tiny island down the bottom of Australia, in a very kind of rural town, and moved to the mainland and the big city when I was 15. So I've been in and around Sydney since then. It's about 20 odd years of living in Sydney and working there. And I make a lot of very, very colourful, very erotic artwork. I think it's always tricky to sort of describe your own work. And often it's not apparent to you what it is or what it's about until after you've made it. But yeah, colorful and erotic, I think, are the two kind of main descriptors.
Colorful in all senses of the word, right?
Yeah.
She does that O'Leary. She does colorful art.
That would be the diplomatic way to describe it.
And so you said that you grew up in Tasmania, which I feel like, as someone who grew up in the States, that always just sounds like such an exotic, amazing place. Our only introduction is the Tasmanian Devil, of course, in Looney Tunes. So I assume that that's, more or less a documentary about how you grew up.
It's a very accurate portrayal, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about that part of your life, and particularly like the role of art in that part of your life.
I think it's funny that you say that it's exotic because I guess for me it felt obviously it feels normal, but it also sort of felt so secluded from the rest of the world and America was like this big exotic place. Like that was, of course, like we all sort of grow up consuming American culture. And so it was this sense that I was kind of so far away from any of that it would be very difficult and impossible to find a spot on like the world stage somehow. Of course, like social media hadn't even been invented back then. That has really opened things up, and definitely like Instagram particularly for me has been a big part of getting my work out there and getting the kind of recognition that's allowed me to do things like this residency. But yeah, I mean, I grew up on like a little tiny farm and we just had farm animals and grew vegetables. My parents, I think in a way they kind of wanted that sense of isolation for me and my sister. And so we didn't even have a television growing up. And I would do a lot of drawing. That was a real sort of like great time killer and like boredom destroyer. And I would get really excited when Dad would bring home big stacks of used paper from the office and trying to find one that had like not very much text on one side so that it was like double blank, and I could use it for things like tag dolls and making little houses for my pets and like for my toys and stuff.
Yeah. So when you were drawing all the time, was that something that you feel like you discovered on your own, or were you encouraged to? How did that come into a part of your day-to-day life and like your being?
I think, oh no, I had a really good friend in kindergarten, Lena Callahan, and she was an incredible artist. Her dad was a painter and her whole family is quite artistic. He also played the harp like at the markets, and we'd go and sort of see them on the weekends. But Lena really set things up for me because she was such an incredible like artist and drawer. And I just copied everything that she did. I just thought she was fantastic. And if she drew a picture, I would try and draw the same picture as accurately as I could. And even like the last time I went home to see my parents, my mum pulled out some drawings and I was like, oh, this one isn't mine. Like this is one of Lena's drawings that I must have like taken home or something. But yeah, so they've still got some of her artwork at home. And then when she left, her family, I think they went to South Africa or something after kindergarten. So we would have been 5 then. And so, yeah, she left when she was about 6. And so I had no one to copy anymore. I had to like start creating my own drawings and like my own artwork. But it was really this kind of sense of world building that I think like kids really love to do. And we were talking about your niece before, and even watching the Robert Crumb documentary the other day where he's talking about how his older brother was obsessed with Treasure Island and they would make their own stories up about the characters in that. Like that really resonated with me. I remember making up books about the Little Mermaid and like all of these different like characters that I would like read about in books or see in movies. You know, if we were over at a friend's place and like watched a video, I would get obsessed with these stories and these characters and be like, well, I can just continue to live the journey by making my own little kind of fan art.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that ability to world build is something that serves professional artists so well, particularly professional artists who have to interface with the commercial market and with capitalism and want to really make money and make a living off of what they create, I feel like a big part of that is creating a complex essence that people can feel like they can be a part of or interface with and come to understand that art and this person are connected. And it's like a micro scale of that is that world building as a kid.
Yeah. And I think sort of like, I guess, yeah, really jumping ahead a few years, but that like world building is sort of like having a style, and that people can sort of identify all of your works as sort of belonging to a theme. And that's really something that I always say it comes about when you're not looking for it. But yeah, like I guess it's sort of meditative in a way, like drawing especially, and drawing is really like the foundation of all the art that I make, whether it's tattooing or printmaking or, you know, making stickers. It kind of all comes back to that drawing practice. And the drawing is really just, yeah, sort of a meditation on a theme. It like gives you a little bit of time to just sort of obsess on your subject. And I really love that about it. And I think when you do that really successfully, like people respond to it. Like you can just feel the attention that goes into a work. And I often say you can tell which artists are gay by the way they draw men versus women. You know, it's like you look at Botticelli and all of the men that he painted are so like beautifully rendered, and there's such beautiful attention to detail. And his women are gorgeous too, but it's not the same level of attention that's given to them. Like, they're very beautiful, but there's not the same meditation on the subject that he really, really puts into the men in his work. And I went to the Uffizi years ago with a friend of mine on this big trip around Italy, and it was the first time I'd seen like a lot of his works at the one time, and I really clocked that quite quickly.
You're like, oh, you really cared about this person's face, like this person's hands.
Yeah, and just there's like a real love and appreciation for the subject. And I don't think that necessarily, maybe it's a bit reductive just to say like, oh yeah, he was gay, but you can tell the care and attention that's been put into those works and those subjects. And I don't know if the like average person could say specifically what that is, but I think you can really feel it. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely art theorists from the early 20th century who talk about the aura of art.
Yeah.
And I think that was a time when you could write academically about the vibe. And I think that's a lot trickier to do now, to be taken seriously while writing in these very serious academic spaces about the intuitive relationships, about the things that can't be proven, about all of that. When I first got into art history, because I was coming from philosophy that is works more in the vibe spaces, I remember really thinking that as an art historian, I would get to talk about that kind of thing, got to talk about the human effect of artworks. And then once I was in the program, I realized I was like, oh God, I have to be a historian. Like, I have to look at old documents and that kind of thing. And you can, I of course managed to work it in a little bit, but yeah, that idea that artworks have an intangible quality to them that makes them valuable is I believe is my lived experience and truth, but also something that I think used to be more widely accepted and talked about and just thought of in a way that can add value to things. So as you say, like that energy that someone puts into something, even if you're looking at someone like Botticelli who's painting 400 years ago, that it stays in the piece, it stays intrinsic in the object, that the love and the attention and the care on the craft. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and like a kind of immortality that I think artists often talk about seeking.
Yes. Yeah. I had a really strong experience of that the first time that I went to the Netherlands, and I went to the Rijksmuseum and I stood in front of Vermeer's milkmaid, and it's like you can almost like hear the milk being poured. And I had this real sense that I was like standing exactly where Vermeer stood when he
Mm-hmm.
painted it. And you're like standing in the ghost of this artist.
Yeah.
And like I have this big tattoo on my arm of this girl crying with this like Italian building on fire on her head, because I get this real sense of like art. Oh, it makes me tear up. I feel
Mm-hmm.
so deeply connected to the like long history of humanity, and feeling these, like by seeing the work, you can see the care that's been put in it. You can see the struggles that they've had. Like you can feel when they've dealt with the same problems that you as an artist have. Like, why is this little section not working? I'm having to repaint it. I'm having to go back over it. And, you know, you look at a painting from an angle and you can see the underpainting, like
Right.
kind of through it, in the same way that like when you cover up a tattoo, you can often sort of see this shadow of the tattoo that was underneath. If, you know, if the light hits the skin just right, you can see the slightly raised like lines of the original tattoo. And yeah, it's really like it's been nice to sort of the further I move away from like my kind of art school days where, yeah, you were really sort of taught to critique and analyze works in very concrete terms, and be able to just deal in vibes a bit more. Like, and not, I guess, not talking about art or making art for a specific sort of fine art audience where you can be like, yeah, you know, like this one's vibing, this one's not. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people are like, yeah, no, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have to break things down so much to be able to feel and understand that.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so how did you come from being in a isolated farm, no television situation in Tasmania, you know, you said to art school? Was that something that you knew you wanted to do? Was that something you had mentors encouraging you to do?
It was certainly not a direct path. I always loved the arts. I was always like very creative, like all kinds of different ways of being creative, but that was always something that I loved to do. But art almost felt so ubiquitous in my life that it wasn't like a special thing that I wanted to do. I just enjoyed it. And I wanted to like dance, and then I wanted to be like an Olympic horse rider. I had horses, you know, on the farm, of course, like
Mm-hmm.
growing up, and we got horses, and that was kind of like horses actually were my like first obsession, and they taught me so much about drawing, because the difference between trying to draw a horse without having any references apart from photos and things, um, and even, you know, even though I bought all these like how to draw horses books from like the school book fair and stuff, once we actually got horses, the being around them and really understanding the subject meant that I just had this far deeper well of knowledge to draw from when it came to like actually drawing them. And so that was really a lesson that I've sort of carried forward. I'm like, if you want to
Mm.
make art about something, you should really try and understand that. You should really love your subject, because yeah, it's like I said, like it's an act of meditation on the subject. You want to sit down and like obsess over this thing that you're thinking about, and you can do that by like painstakingly recreating it on a piece of
Mm.
paper.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I really wanted to be an Olympic horse rider, and then my dad got a job in Coffs Harbour and moved. So the whole family, we moved up to Coffs Harbour, which is like halfway between Sydney and Brisbane. So it's like not a huge city in Australia, kind of medium sized. And after 2 years there, that my parents were like, "Do you want to keep doing horse riding, or would you like to try something else?" And I was like, "Oh, actually, you know, I think I'm kind of ready for something else." And so me and my sister did drama lessons outside of school, and I loved acting. I loved performing, and was really excited to do that. And so I ended up auditioning for a performing arts high school in Sydney, that's down the road from where I live now. So I got into this performing arts high school, and I was really lucky because I was only 15, and my parents were like, yeah, if you want to go live in the big city and be an actor, like, sure.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right. And I mean, I think a lot of those experiences that I kind of had as like, yeah, a pretty young teen, largely unsupervised in the big city, were very kind of formative. But I also sort of realized that, like, even at that age, the kind of nepotism that's involved in like acting and, theater and film and stuff meant that it wasn't quite going to be for me. And I remember a friend and I, so at the school, they had these, you auditioned to audition for like an actual, like, I think, theater thing that was going to happen. And I found out where the audition was going to be held. And so me and my friend, we did the audition for the audition. We didn't get in. But I said to him, like, hey, I know where they're holding the actual auditions. So we went down there and just said, like, hey, we're from Newtown High. And they were like, okay, no worries, come on in. And like, we hadn't lied per se.
You were from Newtown High.
We were from Newtown High, and they just let us audition. But I remember getting called in by the head drama teacher who was like, you can't do that. Like, you can't just go down there and audition for stuff. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I feel like my ingenuity and like go-get attitude should be rewarded here. And I was sort of like, well, if this isn't going to be rewarded, I don't think this is for me. Like, this is sort of a specialty of mine. Like,
you're like, if God has gifted me scamming systems, it would be to spit in his face to not find a way I can make that blossom.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we had two very attractive art teachers there, and I really puberty hit me like a ton of bricks. I was very like boy crazy. And I think girl crazy too, but like they hadn't invented bisexuality yet. And
yeah, that was like 2006.
Yeah, like 2003 I graduated high school. So yeah, definitely wasn't available as an option yet. But I was kind of like, I think those were two teachers who were very open to like serious discussion with their students about art and about the themes in art, and they were very encouraging. And honestly, art seemed much more open. And I think a lot of the things that I'd loved and tried to get into, I found that appearances, like personal appearances, the way that you looked were really important. And with art, you just had to, you had full control over the appearance of the art. And what I looked like and who I wasn't so important as the work that I was producing, which was kind of what I felt was the important part. And that, yeah, like late high school, like right before I graduated, that was when I really decided that I wanted to be an artist. And it seemed like such a light bulb moment because I was like, oh my God, of course, I've been making art forever. Like, why wouldn't I want to do this? It seems like so natural. I can't believe I didn't think of this before. But yeah, and I will say, like, I did an absolutely terrible and derivative series of works for my like final piece. Like, I'd be embarrassed to like do them now. So it's kind of like, it's very much like it's a canon event, like this kind of like teenage art. And I know we were talking about Adrian Brody before, but like
the artistic genius, like he can act and paint. Yeah.
Apologies to any fans of Adrian Brody's art who might be out there, but yeah. I guess what I'm saying really is that like not everyone's Rembrandt, where you're some sort of like artistic genius from a very early age, and that genius is apparent. Like, and one of my art school teachers, I went to two different art schools, and the second one I dropped out of, and I had a really wonderful teacher who when I told him, said, "Oh, don't worry. All the best artists drop out of art school."
Oh,
And I was lucky because that was exactly what I needed to hear at that time. I think I
yeah.
was like so devastated that I was going to give up on something
Yeah.
in a sense. But of course, like dropping out of art school does not mean giving up on art. And
Hmm.
it just sort of pushed things in a very different direction.
Yeah. I mean, it's the art world and art school is so staggeringly different.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
took me a long time to unlearn a lot of the things that I learned in art school. And in a lot of ways, it wasn't until I started working commercially as an artist, as a tattoo artist, that I realized how much a lot of those ways of thinking didn't serve me. They didn't serve the clients that I had. Like, it didn't serve the people. Like, art is intrinsic to humanity. Anyone can be an artist. Yes, there's good art and bad art, but everyone has the capacity to make art and everyone has the right to make art, and those things, making art is really fundamental to being a person,
Hmm.
and a lot of this sort of art school ethos really is in a lot of ways sort of about elitism. And I was at the Art Gallery of New South Wales with a friend, and uh, he was like, "Oh, it's weird that you can't buy art supplies at the gallery.
Mm.
Like, why doesn't the gift shop have an art store?" And I like kind of thought about it, but I was like, well, I don't think they want you to think that you can just go home and make this stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not special, right? If we could all
Hmm.
make it. And I know people love to say, "Oh, my 5-year-old could paint that." And it's like, that's not necessarily true either. But like, actually, we do all have the capacity to make art. And yeah, that's just what
Hmm.
that's kind of part of the deal of being a person.
Yeah. Did you do any printmaking while you were in art school?
Yes, so I majored in painting and I minored in printmaking, and I sort of wish I'd done it the other way around
Mm.
because enjoyed I really enjoyed not just the result of printmaking, but the process of it, and especially the collaborative aspect of that work. It turned out that painting would involve a ton of alone time in the studio, and that was so hard for me. And like
Mm.
this, we're at the end of like 3 weeks together, and we've all worked so hard the last 3 weeks. I mean, especially Tim, who is currently at the studio printing the
Yeah.
last layer on the last
We're just
print.
here having a long coffee on a Sunday morning.
And it's like, it's very much needed. But sometimes I get this knee-jerk reaction when I hear people be like, "Oh, yes, we've just worked so hard on this," because I kind of feel like a lot of the time, yeah, it is a lot of hard work, but a lot of the time it's also like real downtime. And I know that a lot of artists really struggle with feeling like I should be working harder. I'm not working hard enough. I see all of these projects that people are making. Why aren't I making more projects? But you only ever see like people's productive output. Like, I don't post an Instagram story every time I
Hmm.
lie on the sofa drinking a coffee. And if I did, I mean, maybe I should, because then maybe people would understand actually what goes into the art,
Hmm.
where it's yeah.
Yeah, well, it makes me think about, because during these 3 weeks, we've been working very hard in the studio, but you and I have also been gym girlies.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of fun coming to the gym here in Chiang Mai and working with my lovely trainer, Donna, together.
Shout out to Donna.
Donna, we miss you. But one of the things, too, with lifting and lifting heavy is you don't actually build muscle while you're lifting. You build muscle while you're resting.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
actually when your body is processing what you've done. And then you have the capacity, if you rest well enough, to lift heavier when you go back. And I don't know if there's maybe something corollary with a huge creative output. And then that capacity to grow happens in the rest, in the processing of what you've done. You mentioned at the top of our chat that idea of you don't really know what your work is while you're making it. You have to be on the other side. And I feel like if you don't give yourself time for that, like, how can you go and then learn what you're supposed to make next?
Totally. And like people are much more familiar with the concept of burnout now after COVID. And it is like that. You can't just work and work and work and expect to make good work. Like you have to recharge. Like, yeah, you have to rest in between sets. I call it percolating because I feel like the coffee is like all of these ideas and stuff, and you kind of need to let that settle and like let the good ones rise. I'm a big fan of like mixed metaphors.
You're percolating your dough to put the eggs in the basket. Yeah.
But yeah, like there has to be, yeah, it's kind of like muddy water. Like you have all these ideas and like everything's inspiring and there's a million projects that you could do. But when you take some time to rest, like the good ideas or the ideas that have a thread that you can tease out, like that's when they come up. So you kind of do need like a bunch of like phone time in bed or like say just time that's set aside not to be working. So that whether that's like going to the gym or like going to Buddhist hell for the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really need that to be able to create. It's not just about working all the time. It's also about recharging and like, letting the like resting and working hard.
So you said something that reminded me of something I wanted to ask you, which was, talking about the kind of solitude of painting versus the social element of the print shop. And I feel like you don't have to be in the print world very long until you notice that Venn diagram between print world and tattoo world has a fair amount of overlap. A lot of printmakers have tattoos. A lot of printmakers also tattoo or are very passionate about tattooing. And a lot of tattoo artists, also maybe have a print background or publish prints like through Raking Light, which is how we met.
Yes.
For instance, so there's whole systems in place. And Andrew, who's been on the podcast ages ago too, but Andrew of Raking Light, I should say. And I'm just thinking about that parallel between print shop and tattoo shop.
They are so similar.
Yeah.
I think, and I mean, maybe your print shop especially, because nearly every day that we've been printing, there's been guests coming through. You've had like artists coming through, like you've had collectors coming through. There's a lot of like new people coming to see the shop, and a tattoo shop is like really similar in the way, you have clients every day and the clients change, but you do see the same clients again and again. And then you have the workers who are there day in and day out. But yeah, I think it's also like there's sort of environmental similarities and then there's really physical similarities because often at their core, it's a commercial practice. You're making art for commercial reasons.
Yeah, and at a commercial scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a big thing, when I left art school, the first one, I said, I don't know what I want to do exactly with this art. I didn't feel very well prepared for an artistic career, but I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I want to make money from art so that I can spend all my time making art. And yeah, in the same way that you're making work at a commercial scale, like I guess with printmaking, like you have huge numbers of repetition. With tattoos, you're dealing with clients who only have like a certain amount of stamina. You can't be endlessly fiddling around and testing things out. You want to find your tried and true techniques that are going to let you get people in, get them tattooed efficiently, and have them go again, without like hurting them. So there's a lot of sort of parameters for the artwork that means that I guess like that's just not inherent to painting, where you sort of have endless time to like perfect this one single like object or like artwork. With printing, it's like these books have to be printed like by the 5th. Like this tattoo has to be done within like maybe like 8 hours at the most. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover there. And also just the very rough and ready nature of printmakers and like tattoo shops and print studios. You've got a group of people who are the masters of their domain. You know, there's always like that one old printmaker who's the only person who knows how to use that one particular machine. In the same way that like tattoo machines have like we call like mojo, you know, if it's broken, you put it in the drawer and you just leave it there for a bit and then you take it out and it works fine again.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a sort of magic to these pieces of equipment. It's like the same way it's like Juan is the only guy who knows how to wrangle the printer and like the business is beholden to him because no one else could get this stuff done the way he can.
And the other similarity, because I love that idea where you say there's the interaction with there's the machines, there's the personalities of the people who run the place, and also the kind of collaborative nature of the commercial art making. Because we're in a situation with you come in, you work with Tim, and you bring an idea and he's like, okay, well, this is what we can do. This is what we can't do. This is what we can do in the time that we have. And I'm wondering if there's a parallel at all to the collaborative nature of tattooing, because of course tattoos don't work that somebody just comes in and says, Onnie, do whatever you want. I'm sure that happens sometimes, but like
it does. But
like especially for an artist like yourself, that like you have your style and you work in your style and people are coming to you because they want an Onnie O'Leary tattoo. But you know, other tattoo studios and other tattoo artists maybe who do more kind of whatever people want, you know.
If you're doing flash or you're taking walk-ins, you know, where people just come in off the street and say like, hey, I want this thing from Pinterest. Yeah. But even within my practice where people say, do whatever you want, that never means do whatever you want. Like, there's always some sort of consideration, you know, and sometimes people say, do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, well, what don't you want? Which is like 100% my advice for any artist. Anytime a client says to you, do whatever you want, ask them what they don't want, because they have an idea of what they don't want. And I remember one guy being like, yeah, whatever you want. I said, what don't you want? He said, oh, just no nipples. And
that opens up a lot of other body parts.
But, you know, we're talking about a scale of extreme, like having nipples in the tattoo is at the pretty low end. So I sort of, you know, understood really, really quickly it you know, it wasn't going to be anything really explicit. And like, I never want to make like vulgar work. Like I think explicit is one thing, but vulgar is different. And that's not what I'm trying to do. But I don't consider nipples vulgar. And so even just that, it was like, that gave me a clear idea really quickly. But even then, even if someone said, no, I really mean whatever you want, you're like, well, we still have to consider the body part that we're doing it on, or the size of it, or your budget. Like all of those things come into play. So there's always parameters for how you make the artwork. And I liken it to like electricity or water pressure. I think the more parameters you put into a point, like the greater the creative pressure, like the force that can come through. It's often tricky if there's just no limits to what you can make. And I find that, I get so much from working collaboratively, because that forces you to think in new ways and to be creative with the options that you do have available. And Tim is so good about being like, hey, whatever your idea, we can make it work. But he also has this huge depth of knowledge about what will work and what won't, and what the possibilities are. And so it's always really exciting to work with him, because I don't know how, even with a very clear idea of like how the print should turn out, I just don't know. And there's so many variables in it. You know, one of the things we've been dealing with the last week is about transparent versus opaque ink. And
Right.
I love to work with a lot of like fluorescence and really, really bright colors, but they're often transparent. And so as we've gotten to the tail end of this residency, the time that we have is shorter. And there's this one piece where he said, let's try and work with opaques here, just so that we know it's going to go quickly and smoothly. And I really enjoy those kind of like guidelines for the work, because it's sort of like, okay, well, if we know that we want this part to be opaque rather than transparent, then that really limits the amount of colors that we can work with. And that's a big similarity between tattooing and printmaking, is just the finicky nature of the inks that you have to work with.
Right. Yeah.
And as much as you're sort of like, yeah, well, we can mix any color from like these colors that we have, we have the full visual spectrum. Not all pigments are created equal, and some are really easy to work with and some are really hard to work with. And so you start to make decisions based on what's going to be the most effective and what's going to be the easiest to use. And not just because, you just want to take a little holiday and make an easy print, but because you don't want to spend all of the time and effort in just ensuring that you get a good, clean print. Like, energy and attention is a finite resource, like up until you have to replenish it with a very nice slow morning drinking multiple coffees on the sofa.
Some nonverbal phone time. Yeah.
Some nonverbal phone time, which sadly Tim has not had access to today. I think he really has gone like above and beyond the last 3 weeks. He really has just worked so hard. And we had a moment the other night where like we all went out for dinner, but then we came back to the studio and we didn't leave until like midnight, but he's mixing up the colors and he's like, how's this blue? And I'm like, needs to be a little bluer. And then we mix up a little bit more blue and he's like, how's this? We're like, it looks exactly the same, maybe more blue, but we have to be really careful, because if you put too much blue and if it goes too dark, then you can't just add a huge chunk of white. Anyway, you end up wasting a bunch of ink because you have to throw stuff away, and no one wants to do that. And it's very frustrating to have to start again multiple times. So we're just very slowly adding ink and adding ink. And it's not that he expressed frustration, but you can feel the like exhaustion in the air. Like after a long day, after a long 2.5 weeks, like it's really late at night and I'm like, oh, this is exactly like doing a long ass tattoo and you get to like 9 o'clock in the studio and you've had a great time all day. Like everything's good, but it's like your client is tired. They've been getting tattooed for a long time. You're tired. You've been tattooing for a long time. And you're like, we are just working together to get this thing done. And so you don't want to use up all of your energy, or you want to be smart about how you spend that energy, because like, yeah, you have a job to do here and yeah, it has to be done within a certain time. So that collaborative process and having someone working with someone who really knows about those things is really important and exciting and encouraging. It's like, it's nice not to be the experienced one in the equation and defer to like Tim's greater knowledge of the subject.
Yeah, because as you were describing it, I was like, oh yeah, like Onnie is Tim in her studio.
Yeah.
Where people come in and they have an idea or they don't, which is like when the artists come in to work with us, like they have an idea and they don't sometimes. And Tim has expressed similar things about how, working with artists when they come in, there's different options. And, one is that they have a really specific idea that they will not deviate from, that they will not compromise on, and this outcome has to happen. And one is a Goldilocks zone artist like you, who you've come in, you've done a little bit of research on what you want to do. You've got some loose ideas, but you're going to walk forward collaboratively and at the same time leave space to be inspired by what you find here. And then there's the artist who comes in and doesn't know anything about what they want to do. And of the two extremes, if you can't get a Goldilocks artist, he actually prefers the one with the rigid vision than the one that doesn't know anything at all. Because it's so much harder, again, as you say, without the pressure, without the water pressure, to create something. Yeah. So yeah, it's just so many really interesting similarities. And then I think there's also like historical precedences for, ukiyo-e and Japanese tattooing going in and out and all this kind of stuff. It's like,
yes.
yeah.
And I was talking to Tim about it this morning. We were talking about wood carving and the similarities of, something like wood carving or lino print to tattooing, just physically, with the fact that you are damaging the material to make this artwork, and you can't undamage it. And skin will heal. You can come back in a couple of months and like touch something up. But if you're working on like a lino block, if you make a mistake, like you have to find a way to work with that, or you have to start all over again. So there's these like very real parameters for like what you can and can't do. And and also like just the pushing forward, like having to push forward.
And I was thinking about when you were drawing on the lithostone and we had some visitors come in who didn't know what litho was. And I don't know that they knew at that point that you were a tattoo artist as well. And they said something about, oh, well, if you draw on that stone and you can't take a line back, like how are you going to deal with that? And I was like, this little lady actually has quite a bit of experience, So that's, like creating lines you can't take back in lino and litho,
That's, I think, I mean, tattooing is definitely really, really good practice for that. And I mean, working commercially, you learn that you just have to push forward. Like you just have to create something. I really struggled at the second art school that I went to. I had an amazing drawing teacher, Jill, and she was so annoyed at me because I was really inspired, and I guess still am, by comics, and I love the very clear line style of comics. It's one perfect line, and you get a few of those, and it perfectly describes the shape of whatever you're trying to draw. And I was trying to draw like that initially. I was trying to get that one perfect line the very first time. And she just was like, stop this. She was like, stop trying to get it perfect. You will never get it perfect. It's not going to happen like that. I was so annoyed. I'm like, but I want to. And we'd be in class and she'd come up and she'd knock my elbow and she's like, you make a mistake. Just make a mistake. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just learn how to fix them. She's like, that's what being the artist is about. And I just hated it. I hated it so much. But the older I've gotten, and as I work in the arts, she's so right. You just have to like make the mistakes and continue forward with them. And it's actually about incorporating those mistakes into your life. It's true too. The older I get, the more I see parallels between art making and everything else, whether it's like weightlifting or dance, any of that, tattooing, printmaking. It's all that same kind of process. Like as humans, one of the core precepts of being human is that we move only forward through time. Like we can't go back. So all of these skills that we cultivate are kind of just practice for like accepting the human condition, where you can't go back and change mistakes. You can only move forward, only learn to live with them and work with them.
Yeah. And build on the foundation that you made for yourself, whatever it may be, because that's unchangeable.
That's it. And there's always a way to work with them or around them or through them. But you just can't ever go back. So you just have to learn to continue to move forward gracefully as you possibly can.
Yeah. In the time we've got left, I want to make sure you get a chance to talk about a bit your experience at the studio and the prints that you made here. And also that experience of sort of shifting mediums, of turning the trust over to somebody else, that whole experience as an artist of saying, okay, I'm going to do a drawing and then I'm going to go give it to someone else.
Yeah.
And then they're going to touch it and they have to make sure it looks good and all of that. Yeah.
It's scary, I guess. Like but the way that all my clients feel, I'm sure, where they take this idea and then hand it over and hope that I can interpret it in a way that they like, that resonates with them. And yeah, there is a real sense of like letting go. I don't think that not a single print that we have done in the last 3 weeks has turned out the way I envisioned initially. And that's really beautiful. Like, that's how life works. Like, the best laid plans, like, that's they never turn out like that. And Tim and I talked about this as well, where it's like the art isn't necessarily in the final product. It's not necessarily in the outcome. The outcome is just a result of the collaboration and like the kind of energy shared between artists to make these works. Like, to me, as the artist, that's what the art is. And the prints that we've made are just the result of that. And of course, we like make them as beautifully as we possibly can. And we have a vision that we're trying to achieve. But yeah, I really feel like that all the beauty and the joy is in this sense of like coming together, and where one of you has an idea and the other one's like, yes, we can do that. And you're like, oh, and that gives me an extra idea of like this thing that we can add to it as well. And it's like this sense of like curiosity and discovery that comes from these collaborations, and about like sharing this knowledge and passing it back and forth and building something that's bigger and better than what either of you could have achieved individually. That's what gives me so much joy. Like, just as a person, as a working artist, like this collaborative process more and more is like becoming so important to me. And it's something that I really seek out more and more. And you don't get that with every single person, but like when you find the right person or people and you both have this like shared enthusiasm and you can build something really cool together, like, oh my God, it just makes everything worth it. Like, why wouldn't you just do that with your life?
I plan to, actually. Yeah.
I mean, like the whole point of like being human is these kind of like moments of like joy and discovery and appreciation and shared like kind of like shared enthusiasm and shared values. And that's, I think, what gives life value and meaning. Like,
Totally. And I think about it because I know that feeling you're talking about so well. And I also just adore it and chase it. And I think that's part of the reason why I ended up dedicating my entire adult life thus far to printmaking and collaborative spaces and print shops and print artists, is because that's such a good environment to find that magic in. It's really well set up in that way. And it's funny because I think like, well, why would we evolve to have this feeling? Like, what are we getting out of it? And it's truly, it's hard not to think about it in the very romantic terms of that's like the spark that makes us human, is that we're doing this thing that doesn't, we talked about the commercial element of things, but like truly those moments, like it doesn't necessarily have this, I'm not fucking, eating, or sleeping. You know what I mean? Like it is something beyond that, right? Beyond those basic things that does make my mind and my body light up. And as you say, makes me feel just happy to be here, happy to be in this world, being anything at all. And it's there. And when you live it, you just have to say, well, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is.
yeah. And I mean, I really felt that way. I've had a lot of that feeling over the last 3 weeks, but I think, especially like last night when we we printed all day Saturday and then went out for dinner, and that like wonderful sense of like, we've worked so hard and now we get like just a chance to sit down and talk and eat with each other. And it's kind of like you almost immediately feel that settling, and the ideas for all the new stuff like come up, and we're like, what are we going to do for the next residency? Like, I can't wait for the next one. And like, what are we going to make next time? And like, all of us just really looking forward to getting to engage in this process over again. Yeah, it's really immensely valuable. And it's been such a pleasure. I think in terms of like, specifically working here and working in the print studios, I felt really supported and encouraged. And there's I guess like going back to drama school in improv, they talk about yes and. So it's like you have an idea and the other person like just takes it and adds to it and runs with it. And there's been a really strong sense of that all throughout. Even when I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. Can we change this aspect? Or like, I actually want to try that again. Can we do that again? Or is there a way to do this? And you guys have been so good at facilitating that and taking my ideas and enthusiastically running with them and building on them. And it's like genuinely like delightful to see the results in these prints where I can say like, oh yeah, there's Miranda's feet in that one. And this was like Tim was the one who came up with the idea for the like very vaginal durian and the mangosteen. Like I wouldn't have come up with that on my own, or like just knowing that the durian is like the king of fruits and the mangosteen is the queen of fruits. And so those like, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's like, and it couldn't be created alone. It has to be like a collective practice. And even like, Playing, who's come in and like has had ideas or comments or notes on the background of like the characters, like one of the princes, like the Thai ghost, the Krasur. And he's had heaps of like great stories and information. And Kong, who has like a painting studio next door, like he's come in and had little bits of information. And so really like, these prints are like the kind of like full story of like not just you and me and Tim, but everyone who's been around and in the studio. And it's just been delightful. I'm really like excited to see how people have already responded to them. And I'm excited for being able to apply everything that I've learned here to my tattooing practice back home, to my other collaborations that like I do with other artists, to the next time I come back. Like I've got this huge like notes list in my phone where I've like, I don't want to lose all this knowledge that I've gained. And I've been saying like, I wish that we could take 2 weeks holiday and then come back for another month and do all of this again, but more. But I'm like, I have to wait for another year. But I'm like, I don't want to forget all these things I've learned. So I've got this like great big list of like, don't forget this. And like, this was something that you really wanted to do. And we've talked about like making little zines, which is exciting because it gets like even more into the sort of commercial aspect of the printing, and wanting to make like little newsprint comics. And the way that, like I guess at the moment I have all of this like kind of like collective knowledge and it's right on the surface, and I want to make sure that I don't lose any of it before I come back again next time. It's been very, very fulfilling, and I feel like very full of like inspiration and enthusiasm for making even more artwork. And I'm excited to see, how that plays out in my like tattooing practice, in my art practice, like what happens next, like what happens with you guys. Yeah, it's just been like one of those experiences that really cements how like being an artist is just the right thing for me and the thing that I most want to do, and how much real like value is not just financial in this like very capitalistic society that we live in, and we really measure success with money. Actually, the real value of these like relationships that we get from collaborating with each other, and the experiences that we have that you can't put a dollar value on. Yeah, it's been so rewarding and just incredibly exciting. And I can't wait for the next one.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear all of that. And that's you're describing what our dream was to set up for people. And so it's just makes my heart 6 sizes too big to hear it because, we came here on our honeymoon 8 years ago and we said, wouldn't it be nice to have a print shop in Chiang Mai and invite all the people we love from around the world to come make art with us? And it's just like having you here and hearing that came true is just incredibly moving. And I'm really filled with just gratitude for living in a world where things are possible. And yeah.
And I'm sure again, like it hasn't been a straight direct path to coming here for your honeymoon and then the next day opening up a print shop.
It took 8 years, but yeah.
But that sort of focus. And I know you were telling me about like you and Tim, or Tim sort of like having other plans or like trying other things or thinking about other things. And you were like, no, this is what we're going to do. And so, I know I'm one of the first artists to have done this residency, but I'm really excited for you. And honestly, like I'm excited for all the artists who are going to come after me and like also get to have this experience. And I think always like different artists are going to have different experiences and get different things out of it. But I'm so excited for you guys to be part of that and see what happens and that kind of legacy that's going to come out of this print shop as, people come and spend time here and then go back to their communities and take the things that they've learned here and sort of spread them. So.
Yeah. And that was also such a huge part of our dream here was we fell in love with this city, this community. When you were talking about our Thai friends like Plang and Kong coming through and just that openness and encouragement that they offered you is something we found in the arts culture here, which is, in my experience, unmatched anywhere else I've ever been, of just other people doing art, being so excited for other people doing art, really without any sense of that competition or scarcity mindset that you'd find other places. It's just this good people doing good work is a good thing, and I'm so glad you're here. And to be able to be in that space, to be able to share that space with other people, and hopefully in our small way, help other people fall in love with Chiang Mai, help other artists here get known other places, expand their networks, and really help people understand that Chiang Mai is not just elephants and temples, which is certainly a deep part of the culture here, and marketplaces and khao soi, but it truly is a city of art and artists and craftspeople, and they're really excited to meet you and learn about your art too.
Yeah, I think my eyes have really been opened and my perception of Thailand has been broadened so much. I think Thailand wouldn't have been inherently on my radar before you guys moved here because, of course, I'd worked with you before and printed with Tim before, like you said, like through Raking Light. But it wasn't until you guys moved here and were like, hey, this is an option that I considered coming here, even though there's a really good tattoo convention here in November, which I'm excited about because I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone then and, maybe do some tattooing next time as well as some printmaking. But yeah, like being here with you and seeing Thai culture, not from the kind of usual Australian perspective of maybe like staying at a resort or like getting to, just seeing the markets and the elephants and the temples. Although really like the elephants have been such a highlight. They were so beautiful and I was just so moved. They're like big horses to me. And that was really wonderful. There's been a really good mix of like doing the very touristy stuff, but also getting to see Thailand through your eyes. And especially where, I can tell that you've really been integrating yourselves into the community and learning about the culture and involving like local artists and workers into this business. It's not just sort of a very white business transplanting itself into a cheap country because it's cheap, but like it's really clear that you actually love this place. And so getting to share that has been really amazing. I really feel like I would never have gotten to experience Thailand like this if it wasn't for doing it this way. And that's been really magical. And I think like I've developed like a new interest in the mythology of the area and also the ethos. I think Tintin Cooper is another artist an incredible painter who's working upstairs, and she's come down and hung out and looked over the work. And we've had some really nice conversations over the last 2 weeks. But the first or second day when I got here, she came downstairs and we were talking about the little spirit houses that are outside almost every sort of Thai business, where you burn some incense and sort of appeal to the spirits for good luck and good faith. And I asked her if she'd ever seen a ghost, and she very seriously said, yes, just the one time. But it really immediately sort of resonated with me how different the attitude towards spirituality and the afterlife is in Thai culture, and how much that's normalized in such a different way. I mean, every time I travel, I'm like hit again with the fact that there is no normal. Um, normal is only relative to like us and what we know. And so that really started a seed in terms of thinking about spirituality in a really different way to the way that I'm used to. And it's really something that I'd like to explore a bit more in my work. And I'm sure it's one of those ideas that's going to continue to grow and change. And like, again, like I say, I'm really interested to see what happens in that. And, we talked with Joe yesterday who came in, who does some like really incredible artworks, but he was talking about mythology and especially Thai mythology, and gave me some great and really interesting references that I wouldn't have been able to find otherwise. And so, yeah, the collaborative process sort of continues over and over again and just breeds more interest and more ideas and more of this sort of cross-cultural pollination that's can be like really lovely. And this kind of idea of like sharing cultural norms has been so nice, and yeah, has been very like freeing. And I think Thailand feels so special in that way that, yeah, so many artists are just so open to talking about their practice and so curious about your practice or my practice. And there has been like a real exchange of interest and information. And yeah, it's been really wonderful. And I think you guys do such a good job of, yeah, just setting up a space where that can happen just by like having this big huge table like the outside of like where the actual printing takes place. And yeah, like Plang, who's like a tattoo artist and is also learning to code, will come in and just do some work in the studio. Like he's just there, and it's just by all of us being in the same space that we get to have these interesting conversations and share ideas, and artworks come up out of that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. As like you're saying, like with you and Tim talking about how the artwork is physical artwork is almost the byproduct
yes.
of the artwork. And and the artwork is happening like when Joe, who's as you said, like a Thai artist here, he lives in Bangkok, but he was up visiting, and he comes in and he sees that you're doing a Thai ghost, and he just gets lit up with his interest. And then you two have this conversation that never would have taken place under any other circumstance. And you're exchanging knowledge and passion and support for each other as strangers who very quickly become not strangers in this incredible environment that really exists in collective spaces like the tattoo shop, like the print shop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's magical. And I will say, like, it can be a really tricky or delicate subject to explore other people's cultures from back home. And there's, of course, been so many discussions around cultural appropriation, and very rightly so. And it can be difficult to know where to step when you're, sort of at home in the studio trying to research these subjects. And I, of course, try and always do this really sensitively, but being here and having that kind of immediate feedback from people has just allowed that process to happen so quickly. And it's been such a delight. And I think it's been so fruitful. And I know that a lot of times it can be really daunting to engage with a different culture for fear of a misstep. But yeah, I think it's been so rewarding too for both parties. I was like, it was especially really nice to hear like Kong's response to the krasue, because he was like, oh, it's very interesting. Like, this is not how like Thai people would do it. It's very cool to see like how someone else sees this subject. And I was really like heartened by that, because I'm of course trying to do this in a really respectful way, and you know, you can say like the intention is good, but that's not always enough for these kind of things.
Totally. And it's, as you say, it is tricky, but the alternative is that you come to this place, you're immersed in an ancient culture. It's the only country in Southeast Asia that's never been colonized. It's this through line of this powerful and beautiful sense of Thai-ness. And it doesn't touch you. It doesn't show up in your work. You know, like that doesn't really make sense either, you know? So it's like that, as you say, it's a balance, and it's not black or white, but it almost seems disrespectful in its own way to say, I came here and nothing creative came out of what I saw and the people that I met and the food that I ate and the sun that I walked under, you know? Yeah.
I think it's also impossible. Like, it would be such a huge self-censorship. Yeah, not to say that I've been so massively inspired by the culture and the food, and especially like, you know, the horror comics, like, because this is really where the idea of the krasue came from, is like looking at all of these Thai comics from like the 60s and the 70s, and you know, also just the idea, like there's a lot of like beauty and revulsion in my work, and that sort of push-pull of attractiveness and revulsion is like something I really like to play with, which, you know, again, I didn't really realize until retrospectively. But this, like the krasue is this like woman's head with the like no body, just the guts, like the internal organs, and she kind of glows. And so like, I just love it. Like, beautiful girl's head, disgusting, repulsive guts, and like, especially with lithography, like, which gives you so much opportunity to play with like pencil texture, all of this kind of stuff. So I had such a great time and playing, and Tim took me to the wet market, and it was shocking, like genuinely like disgusting and like frightening to see. It felt so alien. I saw like,
and the smell is
like, there were organs that I didn't recognize. Like, why are bodies so full of tubes? I was like, I know I'm going to have a weird dream about this tonight. It was so visceral. Like, of course you have to be inspired by that. Like, how could I not? And yeah, it was really like just so exciting to be able to make these artworks that incorporate all of that experience. And actually, when you talk about like, how did I prepare for this residency? If I'm honest, like, not very much. I kind of knew that like I would want parts of Thailand, and I knew that once I was here, the ideas would come. They would just come, and I couldn't, as much as I could sort of plan in advance, like it wasn't really going to do much good. And I will say I find it very difficult to do things in a way that's not incredibly last minute. I think every show I've had, like solo show especially, it's all kind of done in the last, like in the month before, even if they're planned 6 months in advance. All the work gets done a month beforehand when I'm like, oh my God, this show's about to happen. Like, I got to make some work for it. And that like time crunch, like again, like that makes the creative force so much stronger. So
yeah, there's so in our kind of lithographic family tree, Tim worked and printed and learned a lot of lithography from Joshua Orsburn, who worked with Landfall Press, which it was this publisher in Chicago and then Santa Fe, who worked with many of the most important 20th century American artists and 21st century American artists, like Judy Chicago and Kara Walker and all those people and Christo. And the phrase that Landfall had was "no pressure, no diamonds."
Yes, that's really true.
Yeah. So it's in our family lithographic tree. The ethos of no pressure, no diamonds is in our blood.
I think it's like, when you say that, like, it does sound very, very much like tattooing as well. You're a tattooer, you've done an apprenticeship. Who did your mentor, like, who did they apprentice under? And yeah, you have this kind of like lineage and family tree of like tattooers and tricks that get passed on. And Tim's talked about it as well, like the different mentalities of different print studios, whether things are very well planned in advance and, you make a master print and then they go back and they print the edition sort of piece by piece and refer back to that master print with every print to make sure that it meets up. And I think Tim and I are much more from the same school of kind of like where you start, you see what happens. If something is a bit different from what you expected, well, then that just might slightly change the trajectory of where the final work is going. But that's that journey of discovery where you sort of ricochet from like mistake to mistake, fixing things as you go along and seeing what the outcome is at the end. Like, there's so much delight and joy in that. And it's like, there's not like a wrong way or a right way, but the older I get, the more I'm like, well, this is the way that I work. And I still try and be fluid. And I will say one thing about this residency, the way that I often really like to work is kind of like start early, get a bunch of work done, take a couple of hours off in the afternoon, and then come back late at night when things are really quiet and get like some solid work done. And you guys, like, we'll start early, have a little break for lunch, continue to work, and at 5:00 work is done. Like, the assistants are out, it's time for dinner, and then it's time for an activity. And so that's kind of like forced me in a way to kind of like change it changes the way that I would like work if I was on my own. But I think that's very good for us as artists to mix things up and do things differently. And, you guys have always been so open. I think if I'd been like, hey, like, let's come back to the studio every night and work from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m., you would probably have been open to it. But yeah, it's been like just such a good experience, and one that's really challenged me in a lot of different ways and that I feel like I've gotten a lot out of. Yeah, especially like I think looking at new ways of collaborating and new ways of engaging with like different cultural subjects, and also like the physical parameters of printmaking. Yesterday was the first time I'd ever used an airbrush, like ever, for anything, because Tim was like, look, we've got this, and if you want to make the background, like, this is a way that we can do it. And so yeah, already I'm like, oh, like as much as I can kind of like have an idea for what I want the end result to be, there's been so many like new experiences that you just can't predict the outcome of that have led to some like really delightful outcomes. And those are just stepping stones for like the next project, the next artwork. It's like all this sort of big orgiastic dance of like life and art making. And yeah, it's just like, what's next? Yeah, it's been really wonderful and really exciting.
No, we've loved having you here. It has been absolutely our honor to work with you and see you work and make cool things that are now up on the Hello Print Friend Studios website. Yes.
Yeah. It all goes up for sale tonight. And I think as well for like the value is in the shared human connections. I do really hope that they sell well because I hope that the artworks resonate with people. I hope that like the kind of people, I've had a lot of really nice responses because I've been trying to really document this process so carefully because like, I mean, a lot of my main Instagram account is a tattoo account. So people follow me for the tattoos. And so as I've been documenting this, people are learning about like what lithography is, how all these prints are made. And of course, we have like commercial offset lithography, which everyone's familiar with, even if they don't know, because that's how like books and magazines are printed. Or we have digital prints, which like, everyone's got a digital printer at home, like an inkjet printer or something. But yeah, lithography is like this chemical magic process that I don't fully understand. I suspect Tim doesn't even fully understand, even with his incredible depth of knowledge and all of his printing Bibles and stuff. So I hope that like, yeah, people have enjoyed learning about it and that all the joy that we've put into the artwork, like that, I hope the vibes come through, all of the good vibes from this time. I hope that people see that and feel that and like, want to own a part of that. And because like, again, in the way that I was like, oh yeah, I just want to make money from art so I can spend all my time doing art, I really hope that the outcome of this is that we can fund more of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the dream of the print studio, right?
Yeah.
Sell your prints so you can make more prints.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, we can't wait to have you back in November 2026, tattoo convention and another residency.
Yeah.
So we'll make more prints. And yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And we should probably go see how Tim's getting on in the studio.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go check how these have all come out. I love that we've got them up for sale on the website, but have not finished the edition yet. We'll go see how it's going. Go get a tattoo and have a really nice last night in Chiang Mai
at the markets. Thank you. If you like today's episode, we have a Patreon where you can help support our podcast and get bonus content like Shop Talk Shorts with past guests. But the very best thing you can do to support this podcast is listen, rate, follow, and share with your fellow print friends around the world. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you in 2 weeks.